Good morning, everyone. To continue with our discussion, today we will be focusing on the salient provisions of Republic Act 11131, better known as the Philippine Criminology Profession Act of 2018. We will also include in the discussion the three schools of criminology: the Positivist School, the Neoclassical, and the Classical School. Let us start on the provisions of Republic Act number 11131, or the Philippine Criminology Profession Act of 2018. This law is an act which regulates the practice of criminology profession in the Philippines and appropriating funds thereof, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 6506, otherwise known as an act creating the Board of Examiners for Criminologists in the Philippines. So a long time ago, before the passage of Republic Act 11131, we have the oldest or the former law, which is Republic Act 6506, which created the Board of Examiner for Criminologists. But since that law was been amended, the law that we adopt right now is the latest one, which took effect last 2018, mainly Republic Act number 11131. So in that law, registered criminologist has been defined. So what is a registered criminologist? A registered criminologist is a person who is a graduate of the degree of criminology who has passed the examination for criminologist and is registered as such by the board. So it is very important that upon taking the criminology licensure examination, the passer should go to the Professional Regulation Commission, or PRC, in order for him to register to the board. And if in case he is already done with the registration and he gets his license as a registered criminologist, that's the time for him to practice the profession of being a criminologist. Now let us go to the scope of practice or job opportunities of being a registered criminologist. So, among all courses in the Philippines, you can take a look on education, agriculture, architecture, CBA, or any courses on that matter. Criminology, in my own opinion, is more unique compared to other courses. Why? Simply because in comparison to all of the courses offered in the Philippines, I think criminology is the best program which has the highest opportunities in the employment market. So if a person is a passer in the board exam and is a registered criminologist, he can apply in any of the following. Number one is in the law enforcement administration. So he can apply as an NBI agent. He can apply in the Philippine National Police, wherein he can avail up to the rank of police superintendent. A registered criminologist can also apply in the PDEA. He can also apply in the Bureau of Fire Protection, the Bureau of Correction, BJMP, or Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, up to the rank of superintendent. He can also apply in the Probation and Parole Administration. He can become an airport or seaport police. And he can also choose Army or Armed Forces of the Philippines or Bureau of Customs. There are so many jobs that awaits for a person who is a passer in the criminology licensure examination. If in case the passer or criminology graduate will not choose the law enforcement administration, he can be qualified to teach in the academy. But teaching in the academy requires, as of now, a master's degree per policy of the Commission on Higher Education. So if in case you are a graduate of the criminology program and you passed the board exam and you wanted to be an academician rather than being a law enforcement officer, then you can be. All you have to do is you take a master's degree program which is vertical to the criminology profession. some schools in Cebu City right now are offering Master of Science in Criminal Justice. That's the course that is aligned, vertically aligned to the criminology program. So if you want to become a professor or instructor, then you take the master's degree and you will be allowed to teach in the criminology program. So you will be handling major subjects in criminology. You can also become a technician, examiner in dactyloscopy, question document examination, lie detection, firearms identification, and forensic photography. Or there are sciences or forensic sciences under the criminology program. Since you will be trained about, when you say dactyloscopy, that refers to fingerprint identification. You will also undergo the study about question document examination, polygraphy, forensic ballistics, and forensic photography. So if you will graduate, you can also become part of these agencies offering this kind of services. At the same time, you also have the opportunity to become a counselor, expert, advisor, or researcher, which is relative to criminology. So perhaps you will choose being a researcher and you want to determine the crime rate and how the crime rate is associated with the civil status of the society or the economic status of the society. Doing that, as long as the topic is related to the criminology profession, then you can be employed in that kind of job. Criminologists also have the luxury to become a private investigator, administrator, consultant, or agent or detective in any private security and investigation agency. So you will also be qualified. Like you want to apply to in a position of being a security officer or a head guard or a supervisor in a security agency. You are more qualified considering that you are a criminology graduate. So these are the array of employment opportunities upon graduation. As I have said a while ago, criminology is very unique considering that upon graduation, if we will compare criminology to other courses, I think the program that offer many employment opportunities would be on the part of the criminology. Now, in terms of preference of appointment in government, criminal justice, and other government agencies, criminologists enjoy this kind of privilege. Unlike Republic Act 6506, the oldest law that regulates the criminology profession, in that law, there was no provision that gave a preference of appointment to registered criminologists. But right now, in the new law, which is Republic Act 11131, registered criminologists will enjoy the preference of appointment. I am saying that the preference of appointment shall only be given to registered criminologists. I am not saying that criminology graduate who flunk in the board examination may also enjoy the same. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, katulang registered criminologists will be the one to enjoy the preference of appointment. So meaning, you need to pass the board examination. Because if you do not pass the board examination, what will happen is, you cannot enjoy. Okay? You will not enjoy the preference of appointment. When we say preference of appointment, let us say, there are two applicants. One is, let us say, a business graduate. The other one is a registered criminologist. According to Republic Act 11131, if these two applicants apply, let us say, they apply in the Philippine National Police, the preference of appointment or the person which has the advantage to be selected or to be hired is no other than the registered criminologist, because that's according to the regulation of Republic Act 11131. So registered criminologists will have the enjoyment or the preference of appointment, the priority of appointment in any government agencies as long as that government agencies is a law enforcement agency. Let's say, for example, for NBI, Philippine National Police, Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, Bureau of Fire Protection, Land Transportation Office, and other government positions related to criminology, pwede nga naay preference of appointment ang registered criminologist. That's the advantage of Republic Act 11131. So as of now, the season of hiring in Coast Guard, in the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, as well as in the Armed Forces of the Philippines are on the peak. So, if in case there will be a number of non-criminology graduates who will join in the application process with the registered criminologist, I tell you, per law, the preference of appointment will be for the registered criminologist. So, there's a bigger possibility that registered criminologist will be hired first compared to non-criminologist. In Republic Act 11131 also, the Board for Criminologists is retained. This is the same provision with Republic Act 6506. Now, what is Board of Criminologists? The Board of Criminologists is a collegial body which is under the supervision of the Professional Regulation Commission or the PRC. Now, the Board of Criminologists composed of one chairperson and 4 members appointed by the President. Each will hold office for 3 years. So meaning, the Board of Criminologists, which in total consists of 5 personalities, will be under the administrative supervision of the PRC. So, sa may powers, sa may authorities sa Board for Criminologists. So, these are the powers. Muna ilahang functions. Number 1, to administer, supervise, and monitor the conduct of the licensure examination, registration, membership in the accredited professional organization. So, the Board for Criminologists will be the one to supervise or to administer the CLE, the Criminology Licensure Examination. They will be the one to supply questions, okay, which will be used in the taking of the Criminology Licensure Examination. As well as they are the ones who will supervise the registration and membership in the APO or Accredited Professional Organization. In the Philippines right now, the only accredited professional organization is the PCAP. Okay? Ang PCAP lang ang accredited nga professional organization. So meaning, per law or per provisions of Republic Act 11131, the moment you pass the board examination, you will be required to register and become a member of PCAP. Okay? Because that's, what if I choose not to become a member? You will have difficulty in the renewal of your license, or you will not be allowed to get your license considering that you do not follow the provision. So the provision states that when you pass the board examination, you go to PRC, you process for your license, but make sure that prior thereto, you had your registration and membership with PCAP, because PCAP, again, is the only accredited professional organization. Board for Criminologists also has the function to receive complaints and decide the matter as to the malpractices and unethical conduct in the practice of criminology profession. Take note, cadets, it does not mean that your license will be something that you will hold forever within your life, within your lifetime. A license can be a privilege, okay? Your license of being a registered criminologist is a privilege which can be revoked or you can be suspended. It can be revoked or can be suspended once there are unethical conduct while you are doing the practice of the criminology profession. For example, nahimo kang police officer while nahimo kang police officer, ni commit kag crimes against, let's say, crimes against chastity. So, pwede nga somebody will complain or file a complaint against you before the Board of Criminologists. Then the Board for Criminologists will convene and will decide on your case. And there's a big possibility that your license may be suspended or may be revoked on that, if in case you are found guilty of the accusation. The Board for Criminologists also has the power to prescribe and promulgate guidelines in the conduct of CPD in consultation with the APO. When we say CPD, that refers to the continuing professional development. The continuing professional development. So what is CPD? What is continuing professional development? Every year or every renewal of your license, you will be required to undergo training related to criminology. There are CPD accredited agencies that offers seminars, workshops that are related to the criminology profession. So you will be required to undergo seminars, trainings, workshops, and this will be a requirement for the renewal of the license. Your license will be renewed after 3 years. So before ka ma-renew sa ikatulo ka tuig, you make sure nga nakay CPD nga certificates. Okay? Certificates that would certify nga ni-undergo ka og training or ni-enhance ka through workshops or seminars. The Board for Criminologists will also has the power to issue, suspend, revoke, reinstate the certificate of registration of the registered criminologist. Again, the board, according to the law, if you found to be guilty of the accusation filed against you, there's a big possibility that your license will be suspended. But in cases like the Board for Criminologists find a good ground that you are trying to renew yourself, the board also has the power to reinstate, okay? To reinstate the certificate of registration. And of course, the Board for Criminologists also has the power to administer oath. After you will pass the board examination, the PCAP will design or will schedule the oath taking of the newly passer, and then at that event or at that activity, you will take your oath, and the one who will administer will be the Board for Criminologists. By the way, guys, you will not be allowed to get your license once you do not register in the accredited professional organization or you do not administer the oath. These are two requirements that you need to have or you need to obtain before you can get your license from the Professional Regulation Commission. So those are the salient provisions of Republic Act 11131, which I only want to emphasize because basically this concerns your profession once you will graduate. So if in case you will graduate, or by the time you will graduate from the criminology program, your target or your goal should be passing the criminology licensure examination. But then again, you have to remember that taking the criminology licensure examination requires a lot of effort on your part. That is why when you are still first year, I would suggest that you gather all your instructional materials you receive from your respective professors, you compile it, and from time to time you take a look at it and then you review, so that once you will graduate, you will not have any difficulty at all in facing the 600 questions, which is good for 3 days. The 100 questions in the board examination. So I hope I give you full understanding on the salient provisions of Republic Act 11131 as far as Board for Criminologists and the preference of appointment are concerned. Now let us move to the schools of thought for criminology. There are 3 schools of thought of criminology. One is classical school, the other one is neoclassical school, and the third one is positivist school. What is classical school? Classical school lays stress on the crime and not on a person nor criminal offender. In this approach, punishment, which is retributive and punitive, is standardized and proportioned to the gravity and nature of the offense. It assumes that every individual is rational, has free will, and knows the law. The general proposition of this school is to make undesirable acts painful by attaching punishment to them and to make the amount of pain entirely different so that the prospective criminal could make his calculation on it and make it just sufficient so that the pain would exceed the pleasure. So there are a lot of points that we have to consider for us to understand the principles behind the classical school. Number one point is classical school assumes that everybody is rational. When you say rational, that means you perform an action because you decide to perform it. Rational means you think before you act. Rational means you know what is right and wrong. That's what rationality is all about. This classical school assumes that whether you are a child, whether you are a lunatic, an imbecile, an insane person, irrespective of whatever status you have in life, classical school consider you as rational. Secondly, classical school also assume that everyone has free will. When we say free will, we choose what we act. We choose what we do. We have options. And once we do a particular act, or once we perform a particular act, we do it simply because that is based upon the dictation of our free will. So, thirdly, in the classical school, the punishment is retributive and punitive. When you say retribution, punishment is considered as a sort of vengeance or revenge against a person who committed the crime. So it has to be something that will, as a sort of revenge, pagpanimalos sa criminal offender, sa iyang offense nga iya nga gihimo. So, since this school maintains the idea that all persons are rational and all persons has the free will, imposition of punishment is the same for all individuals, regardless of age, mentality, social status, and personal conditions. So in classical school, whether you are a child, like say for example, a 4-year-old child playing at the 3rd floor of the building, tapos while gadula siya, na-shove niya or nasikhan niya ang flower vase. Naatak ang flower vase, tapos naigo ang tawo dito sa ilalom. Tapos namatay, eventually ang tawo. In classical school, kana nga bata tagaan og punishment. Why? Because they believe that everybody, it actually generalized everybody to be rational and has free will. So there is no exemption, whether you are a child, whether you are suffering from insanity, whether you are suffering with imbecility, whatever status you have in the society, you will be punished when you committed a crime. So the founders of the classical school were Cesar Vicaria and Jeremy Bentham. Take note guys that Cesar Vicaria is known as the father of classical criminology. I repeat, si Cesar Vicaria today is known as the father of classical criminology. What is the contribution of Cesar Vicaria? Vicaria was the person behind the publication of the Essay on Crimes and Punishment. He believed that the behavior of people with regards to their choice of action is based on hedonism. And that human beings, because we are hedonistic individuals, human beings would pursue activities that will give them pleasure and will avoid activities that will bring them pain. So Cesar Vicaria is the founder, along with Jeremy Bentham, the founder of the classical school. Okay? So si Cesar Vicaria again is known as the father of classical criminology. So unsa gani iyang proponents or unsa iyang argument? He argued that all people are hedonistic. So we ask or we look for our activities that will give us pleasure, but we will avoid activities that will give us pain. So what is hedonism? Hedonism means that every human action is motivated by the pursuit of pleasure. So hedonism, to simplify, this refers to pain-pleasure principle. Okay? The pain-pleasure principle. It could be psychological hedonism or moral hedonism. Note that moral hedonism presumes that it is possible not to be motivated by the pursuit of pleasure, but it is unwise to do so. Now let us go now to the contribution of the second founder of the classical school, Jeremy Bentham. So Jeremy Bentham was one of the founders of the classical school, and he was an English jurist, a philosopher, legal and social reformer. He was the person behind the principle of utilitarianism. When we say utilitarianism, this means that the good is something that produces the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people, including oneself, even if it causes unhappiness to oneself. So, utilitarianism believe that good deeds, or for a particular act to be considered as good, it has to bring the greatest amount of happiness to the greatest number of people, even if it causes unhappiness to oneself. For example, in the criminology department, you will be mandated, or you will be instructed to wear your type A uniform. But there are times that you do not like to have the uniform, considering that it's kind of like warm to your body. So what you do is you do not like to wear it. But then again, since there is a policy, mapugsan ka nga musuot sa uniform, because that is something that will make others happy. Muna'y makapalipay sa imong instructor nga uniform ka. Ang imong dean malipay, imong classmates malipay nga naka-uniform ka. Imong ginikanan malipay nga naka-uniform ka. So even if it causes unhappiness to yourself, but still you perform the act, you pursue it because you believe that that is something that would bring greatest amount of happiness to the greatest number of people. Now let us proceed to the second school of criminology, ang neoclassical school. Now, neoclassical school maintains the principles under the classical school. Okay? Ni-adapt lang ni sa principles sa classical school. Nga, number 1, dapat ang punishment should be punitive or retributive in nature. Number 2, everyone is hedonistic. But on other principles, in saying that all persons have the free will, or every persons are rational, they tend to negate on that two principles. The neoclassical school believe that not all are rational. Not all has the free will. So according to this school, children, lunatics cannot calculate pain and pleasure. They do not know what they are doing. If you find an insane person or suffering from schizophrenia, these persons do not know what they are doing. They cannot calculate. They cannot calculate whether what they are doing is something that will give them pleasure or pain. So, according to the classical school, and we adopt the same principle in our criminal law right now, we adopt this principle. Criminals who are, or the persons who committed crimes, who are children, lunatics, insane, or suffering from psychological disorders, should not be punished. So this is something that modifies some of the principles of the classical school. Because in classical school, irrespective of your identity or your status in the society, when you commit a crime, you will be punished. But in neoclassical school, it gives exemption to the children, to the lunatics, to the insane people, or those persons suffering from disorders. In the same manner, in our recent day right now, we do exempt, under the exempting circumstances, the law exempts people who are suffering from psychological disorders. They are exempted from punishment. That is why kung tangason ka og insane individual, na nabunol ka or nasamad ka, dili ka pwedeng mukuha og slight physical injuries against sa insane person. Why? Again, they are exempted and they do not know what they are doing. At the same time, they do not have the free will. The last one is the school known as Positivist or Italian. The Positivist or Italian school is very different from classical and neoclassical. It has a very different principle from the previous two schools of criminology. Positivist school is pro-criminal. I say pro-criminal simply because this school gives a lot of consideration to the criminal offenders. Okay? It gives a lot of consideration to criminal offenders. The concept of guilt must be substituted with that of social behavior. Unlike a sick person, the criminal should be treated in a correctional institution. So, unlike neoclassical or classical school, wherein punishment should be punitive or retributive in nature, in the Positivist or Italian school, it states that people commit crime simply because there are internal or external factors which push them to commit a crime. And sometimes these factors are actually very strong, okay? Very strong. That's according to the principle of the Italian school. And this school maintains the idea that criminals are like sick person that needs to be hospitalized. So, buti pasabot ng criminals are like sick person. So, buti pasabot, urag gasakit ang kriminal. O sa may sakit sa kriminal? Ang sakit sa kriminal, mauni katong criminal behaviors. So, sa may buhaton, para maayo, mawala ang criminal behaviors, kinahanglang tambalan sila sa hospital. Unsa may hospital nga makatambal sa criminal behavior? Ang hospital nga gi-refer ani mauni katong jails and prisons. So the jails and prisons are correctional institutions that are responsible in treating and rehabilitating criminals from being a law violator into a law-abiding citizen of the country. So sa may manner of treatment, sa may treatment, ang treatment nga gina-emphasize diri refers to number 1, pwede kang mo-undergo og livelihood program. Okay? Kung nangawat kay walay trabaho, nadakpan na periso, i-treat siya, i-rehabilitate by teaching him on livelihood program. Kung wa ka eskwela, na ginatawag og educational program, na recreational program, na counseling, na religious activities. There are so many programs inside prisons and jails that are designed to renew or to rehabilitate the criminal. So again, the Positivist school or the Italian school presume that criminal behavior is caused by the internal or the external factors outside the control of the individual. So may bot ipasabot ani. The classical school is very lenient in its treatment with the criminals because positivists believe that the performance of the act is somewhat like outside the control of the person. Kaya ginatawag og internal or external factors. Unsa may example og internal factors that which will cause the person to commit crime? For example, kung putong ka nga pagkatawo, you are quick to anger. Your attitude of being quick to anger is something that will push you, something that will influence you to become a criminal. And sometimes, being quick to anger, being a putong person, is sometimes beyond our control. Hindi na ito makontrol ang pagkaputong. So, if somebody, like we are playing a basketball, and somebody hits us with an elbow, sometimes we usually resort to aggressive behavior considering that we have this internal factor kanang pagkaputong. Okay? Quick to anger. Aside from that, there are also external factors. What are examples of external factors? Like say, poverty. surroundings, sociological factors. Let us take, for example, the poverty. Poverty is a good example of an external factor which will push the person to commit crime. Pananglitan, wa na jud kay makaon, wa kay ginikanan, wala na po kay paryente. You are a street person. Tapos gigutom na kag maayo. So posible nga mo resort ka into snatching, into theft or robbery. Why? In order to fill in something to your stomach or to your tummy. And that is an external factor. The poverty that you have is an external factor which is beyond your control actually, that will actually influence you to commit criminality. But the most ridiculed again, or the most criticized principle of the positivist or Italian school is that this school argues that serious crimes were committed by individuals who were primitive or atavistic, that is, who failed to evolve to a fully human and civilized state. Later on, we will be talking about this, the principle that criminals are atavistic. By the way guys, ang Positivist School, ginatawag ni siya og Italian School pod. Positivist niya or Italian School, considering that the founders of the Positivist School are actually from Italy. Puro ni siya mga Italian individual. So kinsa may pinakauna ani nga kinsa may pinaka main nga founder sa classical school. The founder of the classical school is no other than Cesar Lombroso or Dr. Cesar Lombroso. Okay? Dr. Cesar Lombroso right now is considered as the father of modern criminology, or simply say, the father of criminology. What is the difference between the label of Cesar Vicaria and Cesar Lombroso? Cesar Vicaria is known as the father of classical criminology, while Cesar Lombroso is known as the father of modern criminology. Si Edwin Sutherland, which we discussed in the first part of this subject, si Edwin Sutherland, ginatawag na siya og Dean of Modern Criminology. So the following persons are the founders. Aside from Dr. Cesar Lombroso, who is the main founder of the Positivist School, na po iyang mga kauban ani, ang iyang mga estudyante. We have Raphael Garofalo and Enrico Ferri. These three personalities who were Italians, they were labeled a long time ago as the Holy Three. Okay? Ang mga balaan nga tulo, because of their quest on scientific investigation relative to criminology. So, mauni silang tulo ang founder sa Positivist School. But then again, ang gauna gud ani kaning father of modern criminology, si Cesar Lombroso. Now, let us go to the contribution or the background of Cesar Lombroso. Kinsa man ni Cesar Lombroso? Cesar Lombroso was the Italian criminologist and physician, the founder of the positivist criminology, often considered as the father of criminology. He rejected the principles under the classical school, and then he proposed his theory of anthropological criminology, which essentially stated that criminality is inherited, and that someone are born criminal could be identified by physical defects which confirm a criminal as savage or atavistic. So in the previous slide, I mentioned that in the positivist school, it maintains on the idea that people are born, or people who committed serious crimes are atavistic in nature. Kung may atavistic, wala siya ni fully evolved. Okay? Wala siya ni fully evolved. Because Dr. Cesar Lombroso was actually influenced on the theory of Charles Darwin. Ang theory ni Charles Darwin, nga evolution theory, states that human beings came from apes. Okay? Nga ni-evolve ang ape, nahimo nga tao from Homo sapiens, Homo habilis, hantod nahimo nga tao. So ang influence ni Charles Darwin in evolution theory was been passed on to Cesar Lombroso. So Cesar Lombroso naguna-huna sa iya nga theory nga persons who are criminals have the resemblance of the previous evolved human beings. So naa sila physical statures or physical features sa ilang kaugalingon nga puro pareha sa Homo habilis or Homo sapiens. For example, let us go to categories of criminals according to Labroso. Let us take a look on what is really atavism or born criminals. Ang atavism, according to him, has this following physical anomalies. An indication nga wala siya ni fully evolved or ang iyang physical features na gagikan pa atong previous nga stages of evolution. Unsa man nga physical anomalies? Long jaw o flat nose, bulging eyes, curly hair, black complexion, narrow backbone, flat jaw. Mo na mga indications according to Cesar Vicaria that would prove or that would tell you that the person is prone to criminality. So this is the reason why I stated a while ago that criminal anthropology, diba, in the previous discussion, ang criminal anthropology is the relationship between the physical appearance and crime. So kaning physical appearance of crime, muna akong gingon nga ang atavism nga having these physical anomalies according to Cesar Vicaria are prone to commit crime, and that these physical anomalies are actually apparent or transparent to these persons who committed serious crimes. So in the previous discussion, I mentioned that this is the most ridiculed, the most criticized, because it is basically, the principle is basically judging the book by its cover. Okay? Judging the book by its cover. So kung nakakani nga physical anomalies, purag makaingon ka nga, oy, criminal day ko. Because according to Cesar Vicaria, ingon ani di ay. So I would like to clarify that Cesar Vicaria just want to classify criminals, okay? Just want to classify criminals into many types. And atavism, according to him, is one of the classification. So to further explain, Vicaria was proposing on a theory that sometimes criminals are born, okay? Criminals are born, not nurtured, according to him. Kundili na ay inborn nga criminal. Unsa man ang mga inborn criminal? Muna katong atavistic, muna katong na physical anomalies nga flat jaw, long jaw, or flattened nose, bulging eyes, curly hair, black complexion. So mausahay, ang mga cadets ani kung mausahay no, kumulantaw ta sa ato ang kaugalingon sa salamin, mausahay ora putag mag-guilty ani. So makaingon ta nga ora pug tinuod. Actually, technically speaking, mausahay makaingon tag tinuod, because if you will take a look on people who committed serious crimes, just like if you go to a service terminal and there is a poster posted in the terminal katong mga wanted list, mosay makaingon biya po nga oy kanay mga personalities ba nga nasa wanted list, mura pa po siya naigo sa atavism. But I'm not saying that we have to agree fully on the atavistic view of Cesar Vicaria. So the second category, according to Cesar Vicaria, of criminal is what we know as criminaloid. Okay? Criminaloid. Unsa man ni criminaloid? Criminaloid are not actually criminals. Okay? They are not actually criminals. They do not even display physical anomalies. They do not have physical anomalies. But they become criminals once they face a particular situation that would actually call them to commit crime. Okay? Dili na sila mga criminal, pero mahimo na sila criminal if they are on a situation that will pressure them to commit crime. For example, kani mga criminaloid mao ni katong quick to anger, putong, easily jealous, envious individual, walay pasensya, mao ni mga criminaloid. A quick to anger individual is not necessarily a criminal. But then again, if there is a situation that calls him to become a criminal and he is pressured to commit crime, then so be it, he will really become a criminal and he will perform the criminal act. For example, again, you are playing a basketball, tapos putong ka, and you have been hit by an elbow by your opponent. Nya putong ka nga pagkatawo. Ang situation that will pressure you was when you were hit by an elbow. So, sa'yo may tabo, kay putong man ka, you stab, you punch your opponent, and punching is a criminal act. Okay? Pero kung wala rin situation, ngayon na to, dili rin siya mahimong criminal. Mahimo lang criminal ang criminaloid once there is a situation that will pressure them to commit crime. Aside from the two, we have also the insane criminals. The insane criminals, these are those who commit crimes due to abnormalities or psychological disorders. For example, you're suffering from insanity, schizophrenia, kleptomania. This type is not a born criminal. They become criminal as a result of some changes in their brains which interfere with their ability to distinguish between right and wrong. A drug addict who become an insane person. Hallucination, delusion, psychosis. So, mao na yung mga psychological disorders that may push the person to commit crime. The next one is Enrico Ferri. So, again, we have three proponents of the Positivist School. Enrico Ferri, Cesar Lombroso, and Raphael Garofalo. Enrico Ferri was actually a student of Lombroso. Okay? He was the best student of Cesar Lombroso. His investigation was on the economic and social factors that causes criminality. He stressed out that there is a need for a society to protect the people in that society against the criminals by establishing policies such as criminal law and penal policies. So, na-adapt na to ang principle ni Enrico Ferri. Right now, we have various laws that actually are implemented in our country. The last proponent was Raphael Garofalo. Take note, guys, that Raphael Garofalo was the person who coined the term criminology. When I say coined, siya mo'y gaimbento, siya mo'y gahimo sa term nga criminology. Ang term niyang gigamit sa una, criminologia. Okay? Again, the person who coined the term criminology was Raphael Garofalo. But the term was first used by Paul Tupinard. Okay? Ang pinakaunang nga tao nga gamit sa anang nga term nga coined by Raphael Garofalo was Paul Tupinard. So Raphael Garofalo was another student of Dr. Cesar Lombroso. He was influenced by the theory of his teacher, but although he found shortcomings, according to him, he traced the roots of criminal behavior not on the physical features. He disagreed on the principle that knowing a person that he is a criminal is by taking a look on the physical aspects. He disagreed on that principle, but rather he was taking a look on moral anomalies. According to him, it's not the physical anomalies, but rather the moral anomalies or moral inferiorities which can push a person to commit crime. According to this theory, natural crimes are found in all human societies, regardless of the views of lawmakers, and the society can disregard that. So wherever we go, there are always cases that there are crimes that occur because crime is a social phenomenon. So those are the three founders of the Positivist School. Let us review in a nutshell the three schools of criminology. Classical school believed that punishment should be punitive or retributive. Kinahanglan pagpanimalos ang pagpunish. Ikaduha, ningon siya nga, every person is rational and has free will. And therefore, every individual, irrespective of any circumstances, should be punished. So there is no exemption. In the neoclassical school, it adopts the same principle with the classical school, but revised the principle on free will and rationality. Because in neoclassical school, it believed that not all persons are rational and have the capacity of free will. So therefore, according to the neoclassical school, children, lunatics, insane persons should be exempted from criminal liability. In Positivist school, which is very lenient to the criminal, it believed that criminals are like sick persons that needs to be hospitalized. And this is the school which also believed that people who committed serious crimes are atavistic in nature. So those are the differences in terms of principles on the three schools of criminology. So aside from Cesar Lombroso, Raphael Garofalo, and Enrico Ferri, who were proponents of the Positivist or Italian school, there are also proponents or other proponents who adopt the same principle with the Positivist or Italian school. Again, the principle of one of the principles that highlight the Positivist school would be knowing a person whether he is a criminal or not by taking a look on the physical anomalies. So napailain nga proponents sa Positivist school nga ni-follow sa footsteps sa founders. One of that is William Sheldon. Okay? William Sheldon was an American psychologist and numismatist. He created the field of somatotyping that tried to correlate body types with behavior, intelligence, and social hierarchy, illustrated by his Ivy League nude posture photos. So, William Sheldon was the person behind the somatotyping. According to him, you can actually identify the behavior or the intelligence of a person by just merely taking a look on the body features of the person. The body size, ang idakon sa lawas sa tao para mabaluan kung unsa iyang batasan or unsa iyang intelligence. According to him, body type can be classified into three. 1 is ectomorph, 2 is endomorph, 3 is mesomorph. So, sa man ectomorph? Ectomorph, niwang. Endomorph, tambok. Mesomorph, maskulado. Okay? That's how you will understand it. Ectomorph refers to small body, thin shoulders. Endomorph are fat individuals. Mesomorph are athletic or muscular people. So, according to William Sheldon, if you are an ectomorph kind of individual, your behavior or your temperament is cerebrotonic. What is cerebrotonic? Unsa man cerebrotonic according to William Sheldon? Cerebrotonic means mo ni kato mga tawo nga siging ga complain, siging ga bagulbol, mga bagulbulan. Mo ni kato mga niwang. Full of complaints, insomniac, dugay makatulog, with chronic fatigue and sensitive skin. Dali kayo sila nga makabantay. Like say for example, kung nailamok ka mo batok silang skin, dali kayo makabantay. Dali ni silang mga tol. They are very sensitive. And they cannot sleep well. They cannot sleep because they are insomniac. At the same time, they are nervous, self-conscious. They are very conscious on what they attire. They are very conscious on their behavior. At the same time, they are introvert. Ano sa may introvert? Introvert means they love to be alone. While other people are wandering at the city, an ectomorph loves to be alone inside the room. So, di siya ganahang mingle. He does not like to socialize with other people. So, mao kuno na batasan sa tawo nga niwang. Okay? This according to William Sheldon. The fat individual, according to Sheldon, has the temperament known as viscerotonic. Fat people, according to him, are relaxed. They are jolly. Okay? They are very fun to associate with. Okay? But again, jolly sila, relaxed. O kaning ectomorph, mo man katong lonely kaayo. Pero kanang mga tambok, mo ni katong jolly kaayo. Pero, according to Sheldon, mo ni katong mga tapulan, lazy, comfortable, luxurious. We say luxurious, very materialistic. At the same time, they are extrovert. Extrovert is the opposite of introvert. Because if an introvert just loves to be alone and does not mingle to other people, extrovert is the opposite. Meaning, the person loves to go to other places, to mingle with people, to associate with people. And these are people who does not love to linger in a particular room. They love to go outside. Okay? On the other hand, a mesomorph, according to Sheldon, has the somotonic temperament. O active, dynamic, assertive, aggressive, more prone to criminal activity than ectomorphs and endomorphs. So, maunay temperament. So, if you take a look right now, like if you will face at the mirror and try to find out your body physique, if you are an ectomorph, endo, or meso, try to find out if the temperament the assigned temperament on a particular body physic is correct. Okay? So, pwede na itong malantaw atong kaugalingon kung sakto ba yun si Sheldon. But in other instances, I find this somewhat as true. But I'm not saying that the principle of somatotyping should be the basis in the determination of behavior. But there are times that this principle is actually true. Because I encountered people like fat individuals who they're jolly, but in terms of output submission, they are very lazy. Okay? So na siya gamay nga accuracy in terms of its principle. But I'm not saying again that this somatotyping should be the basis in determination of behavior. This is just a bird's eye view on the contribution of William Sheldon. So this is how he pictured out the somatotypes. The first figure that you can see is an ectomorph. The figure at the middle is a mesomorph, and the last figure is the fat one, so it is the endomorph. The body physique of William Sheldon was actually patterned with Kretschmer. They actually have the same principle, but the only difference would be the terms and the number of somatotypes. Because the body of physics of Kretschmer consists of 4, while Sheldon only consists of 3. So according to Kretschmer, upat ka buok. Picnic type refers to the fat bodies. So the fat bodies in somatotyping is actually the endomorph. Athletic type on Kretschmer's classification is comparable to mesomorph in somatotyping. Asthenic type, which is thin or slender, is comparable to ectomorph in somatotyping. While those body which has no clear predominant type refers to what we call as dysplastic or mixed type. So that's according to Kretschmer. So if you will take a look at this, if somatotyping was having the vertical temperament, Kretschmer was into the crime or the type of crime which will be committed in accordance with a particular physique. According to him, katong mga tambok are prone to commit fraud and deception. They are liars. Muna katong magminaro, mang-deceive. Athletic, on the other hand, commits violence or crimes against person. Manunggab, dunggabon, magsinumbagay. These are crimes against persons. Katong mga liwang, ang ilang crimes are crimes against theft. Katong petty theft, katong ginagmay nga pagpangawat. Okay? While katong walay klaro nga body physique, ang ilang nga krimen mo ni katong against decency or morality. So, I'm not saying that we adapt on these principles, but in one way or another, sometimes we can actually realize that there is actually a little truth in the principle of Kretschmer, William Sheldon, as well as Cesar Lombroso on his atavism. Now, aside from classical school, neoclassical, and positivist school, nowadays, the schools of criminology were added with contemporary schools. When I say contemporary, muna yung mga recent na schools. Like say, for example, we have Cartographic or Geographical School by Adolf Quetelet and Andre Gehry, which is primarily concerned with the distribution of crimes in certain areas, both geographical and social. It follows the principle that a particular place or area shall be known for a particular type of crime depending on the location or geography of the place and its social conditions. So if you can still remember, under criminal ecology, crime has something to do with your environment, or in crime epidemiology, there is a special distribution of crime in a particular society. So these are the principles under the cartographic or geographical school. Aside from cartographic, we also have another contemporary school, the Socialist School, which was founded by Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx. This is a school which blamed economic conditions as the cause of criminality. So according to this school, kung pobre ka, ang kapobrehon mo yung makaingon nga ang tawo mo commit og crime. We also have the so-called psychiatric school. This school emphasizes on emotional disturbance acquired through social interaction as the main cause of criminal behavior. This school focuses on personality complex, which asserts that crime is caused by a balance between the intellectual and emotional capacities of the individual. The other school, which is also contemporary, is the school which was founded by Sigmund Freud, Alexander Anstov, Ellis, and Smith. So this school arose in the 20th century. This is very contemporary through the work of the proponents such as Robert Park and Ernest Burgs and other urban sociologists at the University of Chicago. So these people identified 5 concentric zones that often exist in cities grow, including the zone in transition, which was identified as most volatile and subject to disorder. So in the research of these people, these criminologists, they found out that there are 5 concentric zones, and in every zone there is a specific crime that is committed on that specific zone. So those are the different schools of criminology. Again, in a nutshell, we discussed about the salient provisions of Republic Act 11131 as well as the various schools of criminology. We started with the first 3 big schools in the criminology. We have classical, neoclassical, and positivist school, and we also discussed about contemporary schools of criminology like the Socialist School, Psychiatric, and Chicago School. So the next episode we'll be talking about the contributions under the proponents of the Chicago School like Sigmund Freud and other individuals. So I hope you learned something from this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless you guys.